Now at 9, a new free COVID-19 testing option opens in Webb City.
The Betty White Challenge is encouraging people to make donations to their favorite animal shelter. I'm Chris Warner with how special those donations are and why they're needed every day.
The granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr. tells Congress it's time to legislate, not celebrate. I'm Caroline Shively in Washington. Coming up, I'll tell you more about the fight over the voting rights bill.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Dow Quick. People in Webb City have a new option for free COVID-19 testing. IV Medical opened a new testing site at 115 North Madison Street. It's open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Offers free rapid antigen and PCR testing. No appointment or health insurance is required. You can just drive up or walk in and get tested. Then you can either wait for your results or have them emailed.
In the beginning, it was pretty long. We were starting to get the process. We were still a little bit short-staffed. There was 2 3-hour waits. Now we're definitely got the pace going. I'd say max an hour, just depending on the flow of traffic and how much comes through here.
Officials say the site will stay as long as demand requires. A lot of thawing today. Nick Kelly.
Thanks to finally the sunshine returning, Dow, that allowed temperatures to respond nicely throughout the day. Once we got past a cold start of 24 degrees, it's nice to see numbers back near, if not above normal, with highs today right around 47 degrees. We haven't had anything to track today, thankfully, after the storm system that went on through the region throughout last weekend. I am watching our next cold fronts, trying to get us act together just across the Canadian border, but thankfully that doesn't come into play until Wednesday. In the short term, most of us mid-30s to lower 40s, but a quick look at the day ahead shows we don't drop off very much more throughout the course of the night. 37 degrees for overnight lows around the Joplin area, and despite increasing clouds, we'll go into the mid-50s for tomorrow, but we'll track when that cold snap, the next one, is on the way here in a bit now.
See you then. Relatives of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. are in Washington calling on Congress to push an election reform bill to passage this week. Reporter Carolyn Shively has details from D.C.
After marching into Washington with the D.C. Peace Walk, the family of Martin Luther King Jr. had this message for Congress on MLK Day.
Do not celebrate, legislate.
The Senate is set to take up voting rights legislation on Tuesday. Last week, the House passed a bill that would give the Justice Department power over election law changes in states deemed to have a history of discrimination and set requirements for mail-in and early voting. The effort is aimed at countering new state laws that Democrats say make it harder for minorities to vote.
These laws are being passed with knife-like precision to cut black and brown voters out of the process. And they're exactly what the Voting Rights Act once protected against.
Republicans are defending those state laws and say they'll block Democrats from passing the voting bill in the Senate.
They're willing to strip people of some of their rights, strip our states of their constitutional authority in order to get the power they want.
It's just about Democrats winning elections.
Senate leaders also plan a vote this week on weakening the filibuster, a custom that requires at least 60 members to agree on most bills. Without the change, Democrats don't have the numbers to pass any voting legislation.
I'm making calls, I'm meeting with folks. We're not going to give up.
To change the filibuster, Democrats would need the support of all 50 of their senators, and they don't have it. 2 have said they are hard-nosed. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
Fort Scott Community College today honored the legacy of Dr. King by holding a presentation about the Dockham drugstore sit-in. That sit-in happened in Wichita in 1958. Black students gathered at the drugstore to stage a peaceful protest against segregation. The guest speaker at today's event is the founder of Storytime Village, a nonprofit that promotes reading among low-income families.
When I learned that the students that were coming into the program knew little about the sit-in, and then later learning that many of the adults in the community, and not just Wichita, but that throughout the state, knew little about the Dockham sit-in, it really has become a passion for me to share the story.
Also, the Gordon Parks Museum hosted screenings of the films Eyes on the Prize, American Civil Rights, and Martin, a tribute to Dr. King, written and directed by Gordon Parks. Pitt State also hosted a ceremony honoring Dr. King. The university had a candlelight vigil and a short program featuring a song, a reading of King's historic letter from a Birmingham jail, and reflections on how King still impacts people today.
It means the right to even be at the school, because once upon a time, years ago during segregation, this may not have been possible for students of color to even attend a university in this area. So it means a lot to me, especially as a parent with small children, that they have opportunities that other people only dreamed of.
Pitt State's MLK Day ceremony took place on the campus oval. Today would have been Betty White's 100th birthday. In honor of that, the Betty White Challenge has taken social media by storm. KOIM's Chris Warner tells us what that is and how it's having an impact locally.
The hashtag Betty White Challenge has been circulating on social media for weeks now. It challenged everyone to donate $5 to their favorite animal shelter or rescue in honor of the late Betty White on what would have been her 100th birthday.
We think it's a really neat way for people to honor such an amazing woman by helping not just our shelter, but other shelters in the area.
Joplin Humane Society's Shelter Service Manager, Tiana Fisher, says this day is one of many essential to their operations.
Our shelter runs on donations, so it's extremely important to us to receive those donations. All of our dog food and cat food is completely donated.
As for what the donated dog and cat food goes, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. As for the monetary donations,
the monetary donations goes towards taking care of the animals, towards shots and spaying and neutering, and just making sure that they have everything that they need to get into a forever home and be successful.
While the Humane Society is grateful for a special day of donations, Fisher says it's not the only time they need help.
Donations are definitely needed year-round. We are very fortunate here in Southwest Missouri to have an amazing community who always steps up and helps when we are in need, and we really, really appreciate them for all of their support.
In Joplin, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
So far, the Joplin Humane Society has raised more than $3,000 just through Facebook. KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14 takes this time to honor another four-state hero. Stephen Marshall served in the U.S. Army from 1961 to 1964. His hometown, Farlington, Kansas, and we salute Sergeant Stephen Marshall, a four-state hero. Nick is next with a complete look at the forecast, and later the Southeast Lancer Classic Basketball Tournament kicked off. Today we'll have the highlights in sports.
We managed to finally warm back up thanks to plenty of returning sunshine. Certainly a nice sight to see after the snow we picked up Friday night through Saturday, and all the overcast skies and the fog and the mist that we had on Sunday. That which kept us in the upper 20s and lower 30s across much of the region yesterday afternoon. We had a cold start, there's no doubt about that, with mid-20s this morning, but a good jump back above normal today. We'll certainly take it, especially with highs in the mid to upper 40s across much of the region, even some 50s the farther west you go from Pittsburgh and Joplin. But I think, excuse me about that. Whoops. Don't know what happened there. We're going to try that again. There we go. All right, well, where were we? Dry Tuesday, and we're going to keep the warming trend going tomorrow with highs back in the 50s. That will be a nice treat, but it doesn't last long because our next cold front comes on in Wednesday with not only rain chances and maybe some wintry precip as temperatures take a tumble. It's a front that on the backside will leave us quite a bit colder again by the time Thursday and Friday rolls around. For the time being, 7th range line, quiet skies, quiet traffic, quiet picture overall. 38 in Joplin with a south wind at 8, giving us a bit of a wind chill, but not too terrible. It does feel like 32, so you got to expect a little bit of a bite to the air if you're going to be out and about this evening. But with that south wind in place and cloud cover working in overnight, these numbers that we're seeing now, mainly mid to upper 30s, maybe a few spots near 40, these are numbers that will not budge very much as we go throughout the course of the night because the south wind that we had today, relatively light at 5 to 10 miles per hour, kicks into gear and will set us back into the 50s again as we go into tomorrow. Here's the surface setup. Not much to show at first glimpse, but We actually have a warm front passing just to the northwest of the region. Couple that with high pressure to the south. That will definitely keep the south wind in play for tomorrow to push us back into the 50s. But there's our next cold front across the Canadian border, north of Montana and Idaho, and some upper level energy out west. Both of those will come into play as soon as we get into Wednesday. In the short term, though, we're looking good. Temperatures holding fairly steady through the overnight, but once we get closer to sunrise, I am expecting cloud cover to build in. Partly sunny skies turning mostly cloudy, but despite that, that south wind really does kick into gear, and that will still help us out with temperatures. 36 in the morning, 51 by noon. I think we can get highs near 55 degrees. I think we can certainly do that with the south wind during the afternoon at 10 to 20, maybe some gusts near 25. Here we are at midnight. These temperatures here, upper 30s to about the mid 40s. That's where we're going to be at our warmest as we go throughout Wednesday, because here comes that cold front picking up moisture along the way. We'll watch for some scattered rain showers for the Wednesday morning drive back to work and school along and south of I-44. But as moisture tries to linger and temperatures drop, I would not be surprised if our southern counties pick up on a light wintry mix of maybe some freezing rain and snow. Minor accumulations if this still holds, but we still got a little time to keep an eye on that. Doug and I will do just that over the next day or so. Behind that cold front though, Dow, we're going to go right back into the chill. 55 Tuesday, dropping into the 20s for Wednesday afternoon, 20s and 30s Thursday and Friday, but then we're back in the 40s by early next week.
And that'll certainly be welcome.
Yes, it will.
Thanks, Nick. A powerful winter storm is to blame for at least 2 deaths. The blast of snow, rain, and wind impacting the Northeast and New England today after the storm crept up the eastern U.S., blanketing parts of the South with winter weather. Reporter Mitty Hicks is in Atlanta with the story.
The eastern U.S. taking a direct hit from Mother Nature as a messy storm strikes parts of the South and Northeast, dumping heavy snow, pounding rain, and damaging high winds. Some are spending Monday shoveling out, while others are still seeing snowfall totals rise, including parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York, where more than a foot has already fallen. And more snow is expected to accumulate in some areas of the Northeast and New England through Wednesday. Crews across the region working to clear the roads.
We know that we still have a lot of streets to hit, but they're out there.
In other places, the flakes replaced by raindrops. Steady rain soaking the Northeast, especially the coastal areas.
The winds were unbelievable.
Driving conditions from Georgia to Maine have been messy. Winds and ice responsible for a widespread loss of power. Crews on Monday working to restore service to hundreds of thousands of customers, most in the Carolinas, West Virginia, and Georgia. Meanwhile, the massive storm system stretched all the way to southern Florida, spawning tornadoes which damaged more than 100 homes around the state.
There was no front of my house any longer, and there was no roof.
On the heels of this storm, forecasters are expecting another round of cold in the Midwest and the East later this week. In Atlanta, Mitty Hicks, Fox Weather.
Coming up, trying to make testing more widely available.
The White House preparing to ship out free COVID tests later this week. I'm Jonathan Seri in Atlanta. I'll have details coming up.
The CDC changed its COVID guidance for cruise ships to voluntary over the weekend, and companies can now decide if they'll participate. If they don't, they'll be designated as gray on the agency's cruise ship color status website, which means the CDC has not confirmed or reviewed their safety protocols. If cruise lines opt in, the CDC will work with ships to monitor their COVID-19 preventative measures and track their onboard cases. With Omicron fueling a staffing crisis at workplaces nationwide amid an unprecedented surge of call-outs, nowhere is that shortage more stark than at hospitals. Whereas new patients are still coming in, healthcare providers are struggling to find enough people to care for them. All of this as the Surgeon General says we're still a few weeks away from the peak for hospitalizations and deaths. Reporter Jonathan Seri has the latest.
A crisis on the horizon for healthcare systems dealing with a new surge in COVID patients, with hospitalizations expected to peak across the country during the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Right now, we have about 150,000 people in the hospital with COVID. That's more than we've ever had. I expect those numbers to get substantially higher.
Nursing homes are being hit particularly hard by the latest wave, quickly approaching a record for new cases with nearly 7 times the number from just a month earlier. While Omicron is the latest variant, it likely will not be the last. Nearly 2 years into the pandemic, health officials are preparing for COVID to ultimately become an endemic disease that won't go away permanently but can be managed. Moderna's CEO says they're working on a single-shot booster that will protect people from both COVID-19 and the flu. The goal is to streamline the vaccination process as much as possible.
We really don't want to get into the whack-a-mole approach towards every new variant where it comes up and you all of a sudden have to make a new booster against a particular variant it gets up, because you'll be chasing it forever.
Meanwhile, the White House is working to address the nationwide shortage of available COVID testing kits. President Biden has pledged to allocate 1 billion free tests for Americans. The administration says those will be available for people to order online starting this week. That website, covidtests.gov, is expected to be up and running by Wednesday. The White House says each U.S. household can order up to 4 tests free of charge. In Atlanta, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
Still ahead, grocery stores are dealing with several issues.
Labor shortages, inflation, and empty shelves are impacting grocery stores across the U.S. I'm Madison Allworth in Paramus, New Jersey. Coming up, I'll explain why all of this is adding up to the perfect storm for your grocery store.
Tax filing season opens next week, January 24th, and the IRS says we should prepare for delays ahead. A report to Congress says the revenue agency has 8.6 million individual and 2.8 million business returns still to finish as of late last year because of the pandemic. Processing last year's stimulus checks also added to the difficulties. IRS customer workforce staff is also down 20% due to pandemic health reasons. The FAA has cleared some of the most popular aircraft to land where 5G signals are present. The agency specifically cleared 2 radar altimeters used in many Boeing and Airbus jets. It comes as cell phone carriers are about to launch 5G near airports in some markets on Wednesday. The FAA was so concerned that could interfere with navigation devices, it previously banned 5G near 50 airports. As the Omicron variant continues to surge across the country, supermarkets are being pushed to the brink, hit with staffing and supply shortages. Reporter Madison Allworth takes a look at how they're trying to keep up.
Omicron has wreaked havoc on the American workforce, and grocery stores are not immune. Here at Stu Leonard's, all employees are cross-trained. That way, if one department is experiencing a lot of people calling out sick, you can move workers to that department or even to that store. And we are not just dealing with labor issues. Take a look at these other grocery stores in New Jersey. Even when the stores are open, shelves are bare. Certain items you either cannot find or you cannot find the exact brand you want. Stu Leonard's has adjusted suppliers to keep their shelves stocked.
Tropicana is a household name. Now, we're finding it a little difficult to get Tropicana in our stores. So we have to pivot a little bit. So whether it's carrying a Simply Orange brand or pushing our Stu Leonard private label, we'll still have an orange juice for you. It just might not be the one that you're used to seeing every day.
And the items that you can find on the shelves are priced higher because of inflation. Some in Washington blaming grocery stores for price gouging. But if you look at the profit margins for publicly traded supermarkets like Albertsons and Wise, they had lower gross profits for 2021 compared to 2020. Americans are just tired of paying more for less.
It's just the two of us, and I spend $500 a week on food, and I don't even know what I bought.
I feel sorry for people with big families. They can't afford to eat anymore. Prices are terrible. There's no reason for it.
The labor issue with Omicron doesn't just impact the grocery store. It also hits the truck drivers who get the produce here. And it hits the producers who actually create the items that end up on the shelves. All of this adding up to our current problem. In Paramus, New Jersey, I'm Madison Allworth, Fox Business.
Up next, how citizen scientists help astronomers find and track a new planet the size of Jupiter. NASA is crediting so-called citizen scientists who they say helped with a huge discovery in space. This is an illustration of a new planet discovered when the agency says the citizen scientists collaborated with professional astronomers. NASA says the planet's about the same size as Jupiter. That's really big, but with about 3 times the mass. It sits about 379 light years from Earth and is currently orbiting a star with the same mass as our sun. The citizen scientists were able to help NASA pin down the planet's size and mass and track it. How, you ask? Well, I'll tell you, they did this through online volunteer projects that allow anyone to look through NASA telescope data for signs of planets beyond our solar system. 30 more minutes of news, weather, and sports coming your way. Tech industry giants Google and Facebook are accused of collaborating to rig the online ad markets.
British police are holding 2 teenagers with suspected ties to the man who held hostages at a Texas synagogue. In London, I'm Alex Hogan with details on this story coming up.
We're here to Law enforcement on both sides of the Atlantic are ramping up their investigations into the man who took hostages at a Texas synagogue over the weekend. Reporter Alex Hogan has more.
You just don't know if it's going to happen at your church.
Residents of Colleyville, Texas are still in shock after this man, 44-year-old Malik Akram, took a rabbi and 3 worshipers hostage during Saturday services at the Congregation Beth Israel Synagogue. He died at the scene after the hostages escaped. And now the investigation is ramping up with 2 teenagers detained in the city of Manchester late Sunday night. Akram was from Blackburn, an industrial city in northern England, and allegedly suffered from mental illness, getting banned from British courtrooms after yelling in court and making comments about 9/11. But he wasn't on a terror watch list, despite having what his brother calls a long criminal history in the UK. He arrived in New York about 2 weeks ago on a tourist visa. And now President Biden is asking tough questions about how he was able to obtain a gun.
It's just ridiculous. And it's because of the failure of us to focus as hard as we should and as consistent as we should on gun purchases.
We're also learning more about the final moments of the standoff. The congregation's rabbi says Akram was becoming increasingly agitated as it became clear his demands would not be met. That's when the hostages started looking for an opportunity to escape.
I told them to go. I threw a chair at the gunman, and I headed for the door. And all 3 of us were able to get out without even a shot being fired.
FBI investigators are now working with Scotland Yard to determine if Akram had any accomplices in the UK. In London, Alex Hogan, Fox News.
North Korea resumed a series of ballistic missile launches overnight, conducting its 4th test of the new year. South Korea's military says 2 missiles were fired from an airport in North Korea's capital. They flew toward Japan, then apparently landed in the ocean. Japan's government called the launch a threat to peace and security. The new year is bringing new pressure on big tech. There are new allegations tonight against Google and Facebook, alleging the companies collaborated to illegally control online advertising. Reporter Jackie DeAngelis has the story.
A new complaint in an ongoing lawsuit alleges that Facebook, a subsidiary of Meta, and Alphabet, the parent of Google, essentially worked together to rig the advertising market. The suit, brought by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and joined by more than a dozen states, says that Google's CEO, Sundar Pichai, and Meta's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, made a deal in 2018 that allegedly guaranteed Facebook would bid on and win a certain amount of ad auctions. Now, newly unredacted details shed light on allegations that Google misled publishers and advertisers for years about its ad auction pricing and process, that the company created secret programs that deflated sales for some companies while increasing prices for buyers. Google allegedly pocketed the difference between what it told publishers and advertisers that an ad cost and used the pool of money to manipulate future auctions to expand its digital monopoly. The suit also says that what Google is doing inflates advertising costs. Those increases get passed on to consumers. A Google spokesperson said the complaint is, quote, full of inaccuracies and lacks legal merit. A Meta spokesperson said Meta's non-exclusive bidding agreement with Google and the similar agreements we have with other bidding platforms have helped to increase competition for ad placements. These business relationships enable Meta to deliver more value to advertisers while fairly compensating publishers, resulting in better outcomes for all. The venue for this suit has changed. It will now be moved to the Southern District of New York, where other similar cases will be heard. The decision was based on a number of factors, including common questions of fact, as well as convenience for the parties and witnesses. Back to you.
A bit later, when a young Chiefs fan needed a corrective helmet to help with a neck disorder, a local artist stepped up to give the helmet a Chiefs Kingdom flair.
It was nice to finally see the sun back in action and temperatures eager to respond to that. We needed it after the snow that we had to put up with Friday night throughout much of Saturday and all the stubborn mist, the fog and overcast skies on Sunday. They kept Joplin in the upper 20s to about 30. That was about it as far as what we could muster up for yesterday afternoon. But after the mid-20s this morning, taking out a big drop in temperatures, we catapulted finally back above freezing and above normal, with highs in the upper 40s around Joplin today. Right now, 7th range line, taking you right outside. We're looking good. Clear skies, 38 in Joplin with a south wind at 8. It does bring a bit of a bite to the air, though. That 8-mile-per-hour breeze does make it feel like 32 outside. Something to keep in mind if you're going to be out and about late on this Monday night and even going into Tuesday morning. But as far as the temperatures go, it's not too terrible, really. Mid to upper 30s on the Missouri side, upper 30s to near 40 in our corners of Kansas and Oklahoma. That south breeze that we had throughout the day, it was pretty light at about 5 to 15 miles per hour. It's staying light right now, but we're going to hold on to that southerly breeze overnight. Get some cloud cover in here during the overnight. That's going to keep temperatures pretty much steady, but the winds will kick into gear tomorrow to send us even warmer before they come crashing right back down again sooner before you know it. Quiet setup here throughout the entire day. Again, we needed it after a miserable, gloomy Sunday and all the snow that we picked up on Friday and Saturday. Surface setup shows a warm front passing to the north. That's keeping the south wind in play, in addition to high pressure over Louisiana. Here's our next cold front, though. That's the next cold snap on the way in, but it's got a little time to get here before it interacts with this upper level wave to not only bring in some precip chances back into the fold, but again, that cold snap that wants to come right back in once again. At the very least, we're staying quiet for the rest of the night, and you see temperatures through the rest of the night. They pretty much hold steady, mid to upper 30s overall, so thankfully not as cold as it's been the past few nights. We'll certainly take that. And even with partly sunny skies in the morning, going to mostly cloudy skies for the afternoon, that south wind really begins to pick up, so that is certainly going to help us out with temperatures. 36 in the morning, 51 by noon. I expect Joplin to top out around 55. Everyone's fair game, though, to go at least into the 50s before Tuesday afternoon is all said and done. Here's Wednesday at midnight, though. This is the warmest that will be because you see that north breeze kicking in. That's the cold front. It rolls in, wants to fire off some rain chances for Wednesday morning along and south of Interstate 44. But the front slows down a little bit, keeps some moisture around as temperatures take a plummet. That means some of our southern counties could see a quick shot of a mix of rain and snow that could result in maybe a minor glaze of ice, maybe a dusting of snow. Not a big deal, but something we'll still watch. But the big story with that main cold front, though, and the returning colder side of the jet, temperature staying cold for Thursday and Friday before we see temperatures start to moderate again as we head toward the weekend. So let's break down those temperatures on your 7-day forecast. 55 tomorrow. We'll take it before we hit midnight highs of 44 and drop into the 20s throughout the day on Wednesday. 11 Thursday morning, only 24 for Thursday, but we're dry Thursday through early next week. 30s on Friday now, then we're back in the 40s starting on Saturday.
40s will certainly be welcome.
After a cold Thursday morning, that will be really nice.
You bet. Thanks, Nick. A global effort is underway to help the South Pacific nation of Tonga after a massive volcanic eruption hit the region this weekend. The underwater explosion cut off communications from the nearby island nation of Tonga, making it difficult to know how many people were affected. The initial eruption sent a shock wave across the Pacific, felt as far away as Alaska. The boom from the blast was heard more than 1,100 miles away in New Zealand. Coming up in sports, the Southeast Lancer Classic begins today for the girls. Plus, Missouri Southern's Lacey Stokes earns MIAA honors. Danny Terzer has details next.
Southeast Lancer Classic begins today for the girls. All 8 teams are local, a mix of Kansas and Missouri high schools. In the first game of the day, College Heights hits the floor against Columbus. First quarter, Ava Harmon to Jade Fouts. She gets it to drop. And then Maddie Collin from the corner hits the 3, but the Cougars trail. Columbus now gets the offensive board and Katie Mooney puts it in for 2. Other way now, Jaylee Johnson calls her own number, knocks down the triple. She finishes with a team-high 18 points. Columbus leads by 1 at half, though, and after the break, Mooney gets the steal, finishes on the other end. 11 points for her. Columbus gets by College Heights in the opening round 43-40. Also in the opening round, Baxter Springs faces Parsons. In the first, Sydney Scheibe knocks down a 3 for the Vikings. That's the first of many. Then off the missed shot, Kaylin Charles steals it away, puts it back in. Team high 15 for Charles. Parsons with the lead at half. And in the third, Eliana Valentine Florence drains the 3. Big lead for the Vikings. And back to Scheibe now. She hits her 11th 3 of the game, 38 points. Parsons advances with a win over Baxter 65-27. The Pittsburgh Purple Dragons are hosting the Bill Hansen Memorial Tournament this week. Games kick off for both the boys and the girls on Thursday. 5 local schools are competing in this year's tournament. The field is extremely competitive on both the girls and boys sides. 7 teams are ranked, and 2 of those are number 1 in their state. The Pittsburgh boys will be one of the teams to beat this year. They're 7-1 and ranked 10th in 5A in Kansas. And the Purple Dragons are hoping the level of competition helps them to improve.
We're really excited about hosting the tournament this year. Last year we weren't able to host the tournament, but we know this tournament has a lot of great teams coming and great players are going to be playing in it, and it's just going to help prepare us for the rest of the year. When you play great teams, those little things get magnified, so it'll be good for us to, just retouch on those little things that we preach day in and day out, and hopefully we can take care of those and get better.
The Pittsburgh boys play Owasso in the opening round on Thursday at 7 p.m. Missouri Southern's Lacey Stokes has been named the MIAA Athlete of the Week. Stokes helped lead the Lions to 3 straight wins last week. And in those 3 games, Stokes averaged 20.3 points, 6.6 assists, 6 rebounds, and 3.7 steals. It wasn't just a strong week for Stokes. She's had a strong freshman campaign so far. She leads the MIAA in assists and steals this season and is 3rd in all of Division II in those same categories. Missouri Southern faces a tough road schedule this week at Fort Hays State and at Nebraska Kearney. We're back with more news after this.
Kansas City family says they're grateful for a local artist who made a custom helmet for their boy who has a neck condition. And the artist added a special touch for the family who are diehard Kansas City Chiefs fans. Julian Kim reports.
I've always been in Kansas City and always been a Chiefs fan.
The fandom started with Nancy Walker's dad and now runs in their family 4 generations strong.
Ryder, do you have a favorite football?
Through all the team's wins and losses, Nancy always stuck by her Chiefs.
I just love this. You get started in it and you can't put it down.
So it only made sense to turn to the kingdom when life threw her family a curveball.
They always want to kind of make sure that the other one's close by.
Identical twins Jet and Hayden were born 7 weeks premature. Doctors diagnosed them with flat spots and torticollis, a condition that causes their neck muscles to tighten.
Because of that, eventually in the future, like helmets won't fit correctly, sunglasses, anything that deals with their head, things won't fit properly.
Wearing helmets like this early on can help correct it as they grow. Jet can now take his off.
The struggle, I think, to get these little babies here and have them healthy, and then knowing that they had, I'm getting emotional now.
With her love for anything Chiefs, Nancy reached out to Cynthia Burris, a local artist and Chiefs fan who agreed to make Hayden a customized piece.
It was challenging, but it was rewarding. It was something that I knew was really special to them. And it was special to me too, because it kind of brought me out of my painting shell.
Cynthia tells me she sees it as a symbol of positivity during an otherwise difficult time.
When they're out in public, I think sometimes people look and like, ooh, what's going on there? And I just think with it customized, it kind of just takes that away. And people are like, oh, wow, that's cute. And they don't, kind of look at it as a negative.
I mean, she just really went above and beyond.
Coming up, from movies to music, going to learn about all the entertainment options being released this week. DVD, digital, and music releases this week include an animated sequel, a retro psychological thriller, a 1980s reboot, and more. Here's Fox's Ashley Dvorkin with the list of new releases.
Wait a minute.
Topping the list of what's new in home entertainment, the animated sequel, The Addams Family 2, follows the popular creepy and kooky clan hitting the road in their haunted camper for a trip across America. Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie star in Last Night in Soho. The retro psychological thriller centers around an aspiring fashion designer who mysteriously connects with a young singer from the 1960s. In the film adaptation The Dry, Eric Bana plays a federal police agent called back to his hometown to investigate a friend's murder.
You know where the bank manager is?
Sam Worthington, Machine Gun Kelly, and Thomas Jane star in The Last Son. The Western thriller is set in 19th century Sierra Nevada and follows an outlaw attempting to end his evil family line.
Maybe Ruby and the kid brought back here.
Neil McDonough plays a hitman seeking revenge and on the hunt for a teenager who witnessed his brother's murder in the action thriller Red Stone. From the small screen, Season 5 of the CW drama Riverdale, as well as the network's reboot of the 1980 series Dynasty Season 4, plus the 5th season of the TNT drama Animal Kingdom, and NBC's musical special Annie Live, featuring Taraji P. Henson, Harry Connick Jr., and Selena Smith. For music fans, Kiefer Sutherland releases his third album, Bloor Street. In Hollywood, Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
And that's our time for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We're going to leave you with video of a drone light display in Chile. Let's make it a great tomorrow.